If we could go ahead and get a start this morning, we're going to begin with a couple of things. We want to look at horse evolution and whale evolution today. So first off, we'll begin with horse evolution, and I'd like us to see Genesis chapter 1, verse 24. God said, "Let the earth bring forth a living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind," and it was so. Well, that's the answer God gives as to how the horse got here. But that's not the same answer that you'll get from the Darwinist. The evolution of the horse supposedly began with a small dog-sized creature that had 3 toes. They believe this little dog-like creature gradually evolved into the modern horse with 1 toe. The first supposed horse is the Hyracotherium. The fossil was discovered in 1841 by Richard Owen, who considered it a type of Hyrax. Owen did not believe in Darwin's evolution, but Darwinism hasn't been stopped by that in using what he discovered. 35 years later, Othniel Marsh, an evolutionist, named it the Eohippus, or dawn horse, after he and Thomas Huxley decided that it was the precursor to the horse. Marsh displayed the first horse series at Yale University's Peabody Museum in 1879. The Peabody Museum still has a horse evolution display now. And you'll notice up there in that right-hand corner, we'll just blow that up for you. You see how you've got the first horse and then the modern horse. That's how they present it to us. Here's a model of the supposed first horse. And the Chicago Field Museum has a large horse evolution display. And in there you'll see this chart, horse history. And so you can see something that looks really, they try to make it look somewhat horse-like, and then growing up to what we have today. We're going to look at 5 things about so-called horse evolution. First off, this is simply an exercise in homology. Secondly, evolutionists know that the horse chart is inaccurate. Thirdly, the various types of horses coexist in the fossil record. That says something. And fourthly, there's no reason to consider Hyracotherium any type of horse. And 5, to arrange horses in evolutionary order by size and differences ignores the fact that modern horses come in a wide variety. First off, this is simply an exercise in homology. Remember, we've looked at homology not that long ago, and it speaks of the similarity of structure between different animals or humans. The only evidence is the vague similarity of the creatures when arranged in a certain order. That's the evidence for evolution. So because they're somewhat similar, that proves that this came from that. But that's very flawed thinking. We could do that with chairs. I could get a bunch of chairs up here and say, do you see how it has 4 legs and a back and a seat? And we could say, now, can you see how that chair evolved from that chair? Well, you'd say, that's pretty strange. But that's actually all that they're doing. That's homology. It's impossible to prove evolution from bones. There's no scientific reason not to believe that each of the fossilized creatures was created by God. The bones can't provide this information one way or the other. You can't look at the bones and say, that proves creation, or that proves evolution, or say a third theory. Ancestry and descent are not applicable in the fossil record, says Colin Patterson. He said, is Archaeopteryx Archaeopteryx, the ancestor of all birds? Perhaps yes, perhaps no. There's no way of answering the question. And he went on and said, it's easy enough to make up stories of how one form gave rise to another, but such stories are not part of science, for there's no way of putting them to the test. Notice there's an admittance there. It is actually a story. It's something that some theory that was come up with. Secondly, evolutionists know that the horse chart is inaccurate. George Simpson, in Life of the Past, said the transformation of Hyracotherium into Equus, so dear to the heart of generations of textbook writers, never happened in nature. And Niles Eldridge from the American Museum of Natural History said the exhibit on horse evolution has been presented as literal truth in textbook after textbook. I think that is lamentable. There was a 4-day meeting of evolutionists back in 1980, and the report out of that was put into the Houston Chronicle. They said the popularly told example of horse evolution has long been known to be wrong. Instead of gradual change, fossils of each species appear fully distinct, persist unchanged, and then become extinct. Now, you wouldn't know that by going on YouTube and typing in horse evolution. It's presented as just definite fact, even as of Friday when I was looking at it. And it's said with a straight face. It's said by someone who seems to know what they're talking about, but it is actually nothing but rubbish. Number 3, the various types of horses coexist in the fossil record. Consider this. In one fossil graveyard in northeastern Nebraska, they found 5 species of horses coexisting in one time and place. There were the 3-toed and the 1-toed. How does that prove evolution then? I think it goes to the other view. One type of horse. This shows that one type of horse is not older than the others. They did not evolve from one another. They're there in the same place. Actually fits better with what the Bible teaches, where you would expect fossil graveyards when it comes to a flood, a universal flood. All these animals all in one spot. Number 4, there's no reason to consider Hyracotherium any type of horse. The reconstructions of Hyracotherium are designed to make the creature look as horse-like as possible. So, for example, it looks somewhat like a horse. That looks somewhat like a horse. And here it's galloping like a horse, this Hyracotherium. Here you see them living in herds like horses. None of this happened, it's just guesswork. How do we know? We'll show you in a minute. If we look at the actual skeleton reconstruction, we see that its back legs were much longer than its front legs. It is obvious that it looked and moved nothing like a horse. Notice the hind legs. So here what we're doing is comparing the Hyracotherium skeleton up at the top left with the horse skeleton. And then if you'll notice the front legs. Notice something else. Do you see something else different about it? The spine, yeah. The spine of the Hyracotherium is very curved compared to that of a horse. The Hyracotherium probably looked even less horse-like than this drawing. But already that drawing doesn't look very horse-like at all. Here's a correct reconstruction of the skeleton, but it is displayed in an unrealistic manner to make it appear horse-like. This is not science, it is myth-making. All right, so there's no evidence that the Heracitherium actually was a horse. And number 5, to arrange horses in evolutionary order ignores the fact that modern horses come in a wide variety. For example, you've got the draft horse that weighs nearly 1,350 kilograms and stands 2 meters tall. Now, the average person, average man is probably about 1.75 to 1.8. So we're talking about something taller than that. A draft horse is major, but compare it to the miniature horse. The Thumbelina weighed 26 kilograms and stands, about that high off the ground. Well, if there's that much variety in horses today, then why do we have to make the assumption that horses grew from something smaller to something bigger over long ages? So horse evolution is a myth. Genesis 1:24, God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, the beast of the earth after his kind," and it was so.